Recording. Okay, questions to you. Now, I'm going to ask them out to you and I'm going to pop up a poll, okay? And then I want to see what you guys think. So then I know the expectation here tonight. So first question, does being overweight cause arthritis? And the second question is, does being overweight make arthritis symptoms worse? So just give me a moment, have a little think while I bring up the poll questions for you. So here are two questions. I'm going to launch that now. So you should see them come up on your screen now, and you can go ahead and give that a crack. They're anonymous, everybody. I can show you the percentage, though, at the end of who answered what. Okay. Drum roll. Answers coming in now. Does being overweight cause arthritis? One or two maybe saying yes, majority saying no, some saying maybe not sure. Does being overweight make arthritis symptoms worse? Majority saying yes, some saying no. So great. Thank you for answering. I'll end the poll, and if you're interested, I'll just share those results with you now. You can have a little look there of what majority of people here tonight thought of those questions. Well, believe it or not, that they're the two main questions that we're going to be sort of diving into in this first half of the session tonight. So looking at the link between weight and arthritis. So I'll stop that share. And we'll move on and actually have a look. So does being overweight cause arthritis? Well, it's a great question. I know, thank you. I did pose it. And the answer is, well, it's complicated, but probably not. So is being overweight the single cause of someone developing osteoarthritis? And the answer is no, probably not, because there are many things that actually contribute to the causation of osteoarthritis and autoimmune rheumatic conditions like rheumatoid arthritis. But of course, it certainly doesn't help. It doesn't help being overweight. Overweight does, we know from studies, research, that it puts you at a higher risk of developing osteoarthritis. It potentially acts as a trigger for rheumatoid arthritis and similar. And it certainly increasing the severity of the disease. Yes, it does. So in fact, for some stats, women have nearly 4 times the risk of developing osteoarthritis. And this particular study focused on the knee. And for men, the risk is actually 5 times greater if they're overweight. So there is certainly a strong relationship, or what we would call a correlation between them. So the more people that might be overweight, or the more people who are at the higher risk they are at developing osteoarthritis. But we also need to consider that there's likely some sort of bidirectional relationship happening here with weight, arthritis, and joint pain. So, for example, you may develop arthritis, which then reduces your ability to exercise, and then you put on more weight, and there's that sort of vicious cycle. And then there's pain involved in that as well. Or it could be that you are overweight, and then you develop arthritis or osteoarthritis, or maybe it's a bit of both, in fact. And there are many reasons as to why we might put on weight over certain periods of time. But there's certainly some sort of relationship there, and it seems to sort of go both ways. Hence why it's a good question, but it's really complicated. But it's certainly a reason or a contributor to the development of and the severity of different forms of arthritis. So what's important to know is that there's a difference between body mass, and in this instance, I guess body weight being overweight in that sense. So the number that looks back at you on the scales, that's your body mass. That's how much you weigh. That includes your bone, your muscle, and your fat, and your organs, and the fluid within you. So there's a difference between body mass, what you weigh, and there's a difference between the amount of adipose tissue you have and the respective relationship with arthritis and arthritis severity and pain. So, fact, body mass does not play as big a role as we once thought in the development and the severity of, this is specifically for osteoarthritis. That is, you may be overweight, and remember that incorporates everything, your muscle and your bone, for example. And yes, that obviously, the total body mass doesn't play as big a role as what we once thought in the development of and the severity of osteoarthritis. That is, you may be overweight, of course, and excess weight on the joints, we know probably isn't great, but it's actually the adipose tissue, so fat cells, that are more likely to have a bigger impact on the joints, particularly from a systemic point of view, a metabolic point of view. Another fact, adipose tissue is recognized as an active endocrine organ that secretes many active cytokines and hormones, which I'm going to talk about shortly, some of which may be related to the development of musculoskeletal conditions, including arthritis and pain. So that's a very interesting, two interesting facts there. And let's dive a little bit deeper into those now. And we'll look at it from the context of that second question, the poll, in that, does excess weight, or in this case, potentially adipose tissue as well, make arthritis symptoms worse? So being overweight, carrying excess weight, certainly increases the load placed on the joints, such as the knee, like a weight-bearing joint, the knee or the hip, for example, or a foot, of which could possibly hasten the breakdown of the cartilage. So, for example, it's estimated that a force of 3 to 6 times one's body weight is exerted across the knee while walking. And so then you can imagine this is significantly increased in when our body weight is higher than what it, for lack of a better word, than what it could or should be. So we know that even losing 5% of your body weight will improve movement and function and reduce inflammation and pain. So certainly body mass and weight does contribute to the severity of your arthritis, whether that be osteoarthritis or a rheumatic autoimmune condition like rheumatoid arthritis or similar, simply due to there's more load, shearing forces placed on the joint itself. However, interestingly, being overweight has also been associated with higher rates of hand osteoarthritis, so suggesting the involvement of something else might be at play, because hands don't really bear weight. So it's an interesting concept to think about. And just because you are overweight, yes, you might be at a high risk of developing arthritis, osteoarthritis, but that doesn't mean that you're always going to have it or it's always going to cause you a problem. So something else is at play here. So there is evidence mounting that changes in biomechanical loading due to increased body mass isn't the full explanation for the severity of a form of osteoarthritis. So these obviously observations from studies suggest that there are other factors involved. So let's have a look then what that might be. And what I will focus on here tonight is talking about a hormone called leptin, which is very much connected to adipose tissue. And adipose tissue is just another way to say fat cells. So one of these factors is related to the presence of adipose tissue and the secretion of leptin. For those of you who are not sure what leptin is a hormone, and it's predominantly made by adipose cells or tissues, and also from the cells on the lining of the intestines. And it helps to regulate energy balance by inhibiting hunger, which in turn diminishes fat storage in fat cells. So it basically, it's that sort of feeling full message that's sent to your brain as well. So that's the role that leptin can play as well. So we know that hormones, they talk to our body and they talk to our brain. So its relationship is with the body and the brain, and it comes from adipose tissue. So what about leptin is so bad? Well, it certainly has its place, but leptin in large amounts, larger quantities, also has a pro-inflammatory influence on cartilage. And what does that mean? Well, meaning that it increases cartilage degradation and induces what we call hyperalgesia. And that's just a really funky word to say. It essentially increases our sensitivity to feeling pain. Hence why in studies, there's a really strong relationship to larger or increased adipose tissue, cartilage degeneration, and an increase in pain. And partly that is because of the hormone leptin being over-secreted, or there's just been a lot of it secreted. So thus, leptin contributes to the catabolic environment that is osteoarthritis. This is for osteoarthritis specific. So it goes without saying that excess adipose tissue increases leptin secretion, which in turn may compromise the health of cartilage and influence our perception of pain. Now, leptin isn't the only culprit. High levels of cholesterol, blood glucose, and inflammatory biomarkers such as C-reactive protein or CRP, these also have a similar effect on cartilage and severity as leptin does, albeit via slightly different mechanisms or functions. So I wanted to share these points with you tonight because I thought they may be interesting. You may not have been aware of the potential difference between weight, general body mass, and its effect on our joints. That's the loading, like it places more load on our joints. And yes, that contributes to the severity of arthritis. And even just losing a little bit can certainly improve movement, function, etc. But also letting you in on understanding the role that adipose tissue and the hormone leptin plays in, I guess, the pro-inflammatory effects that it has on our cartilage and the effect that it can have on pain. So increasing our sensitivity to pain. Before I move on from that there, I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions so far. Great. Must be going so well that I've just answered all your questions. So what we'll do then is let's then go, okay, well, that's great. That's nice to know. Kind of then what do I do about it? Well, let's look at how you might lose weight. Now, of course, I don't want to go, well, first, what I'd like to say is that for you personally, you may not need to lose weight. So But for those who may need to or would like to know about it, of course, this is for you. Now, this is a little more universal to the different types of arthritis, not just specific to OA or RA or similar. So the first point is how to lose weight. The first point here is, well, you need to want to make these changes occur, because lifestyle changes are ultimately required for successful weight maintenance, or to lose weight, of course. Your readiness to make these changes and your willingness to commit to them over the long term are crucial in achieving these kinds of goals. So studies have shown that health promotion messages are most effective when specifically targeted to a patient's or client's consumer's level of readiness. So, I guess it's kind of like you can lead the horse to water, but that horse has got to want to drink, kind of thing. So it's about getting yourself in a space where you're ready and you're ready to commit. Now that might look different to different people. People might feel they need to ensure they have the support networks in place. They might want to have a partner to do it with. They might want to make sure they've got the right shoes and things like that. These are just examples. But it's also ready in here. Other things? Well, you'll need to and probably like to reassess motivation and goals periodically. So it's always good to set those smaller milestones so that you reach them, makes you feel good, and it helps improve and increase motivation and momentum. So reassessing them periodically will ensure that you've always got something to work towards. Some of the things that you may need to do is, and which will probably feed back into that very first dot point, is about your readiness and your willingness to commit, is that sometimes we need to really address the reasons for our weight gain. Now, this isn't this one isn't directed to everybody, but some people may have developed or may have put on weight steadily over a long period of time because of something that may have happened. And perhaps it's difficult to move past that, or to lose weight because they need to move past whatever it was that they happened. So there could have been some past trauma, just as an example. We need to recognize if there's any sort of emotional eating happening, self-soothing or medicating. Often we do this through obviously a food that makes us feel good, and we kind of get that dopamine hit, and we get into that reward system, like ice cream, for example, whenever we're feeling down. And other people, it might be self-medicating with alcohol, for example. So we need to recognize those patterns and behaviors within ourselves and recognize that we could probably change them, and for the better. Triggers, environmental triggers, social triggers, we have to recognize these. Poor self-esteem. So the way we get around that is improving self-efficacy, empowering you with, for example, knowledge. So this could be this right now. Turning up to one of these webinars is about increasing your knowledge, and that might help empower you to make some changes. And I guess that feeds into the last one. There is limited knowledge of where to start. So sometimes it's just about asking someone. While that might sound simple as well, sometimes that can be one of the most difficult places to start, actually, is to ask for help or admit that you may feel overweight and things might need to change, and admitting that can be difficult. So it's all about taking those those steps, those small but big steps. Because what you don't want to fall into is, some people can do it on their own, don't get me wrong, but falling into the trap of this vicious cycle of dieting. And this is, I've seen this multiple times before with people in the past that I've treated, who part of getting better from a musculoskeletal injury, losing weight, would certainly be a good step, be positive for their physical and mental health. But without the right help, I've seen many people fall into this vicious diet cycle. So they'll diet and they'll often pick the most easiest one, something that they've tried before. It's usually a short-term fix. It's usually something where it's really quite restrictive, and it's that they'll drop the calories, or they'll completely remove a food group, for example. So there's a huge decrease in calories because they feel like, oh, I want to lose this now. I want to make these changes. I want them overnight. And then what that does is triggers this famine response. So it reduces our metabolic rate, but in fact, it actually increases our fat storage, because our brain goes, oh no, when am I next going to get my meal? Well, I know I need energy to keep going and keep warm. So I better act whatever is she puts into my mouth, I'm going to store it. And now this is very difficult to maintain a restricted diet. But you try to maintain your daily activities. And so you often feel really fatigued, lethargic, and it's quite unmotivating, and it's not very satisfying either. And so you'll often, not all the time, but you'll often fall off the wagon there. And then what will you do? You'll probably feel really bad about yourself. And you might then go on a bit of a binge. And so then you'll have this sharp increase in calories, and it may not be of the best kind of food, perhaps high saturated, high fat, high salt, high sugar. But unfortunately, you still have this slow metabolic rate. So that's how quickly you chew through the energy we get from food. You may have also lost muscle, and muscle requires lots of energy to stay happy and healthy. So if you've lost the means to use the energy as well, then you'll probably end up gaining weight. And you might even gain back more than what you started with before this crash diet, if you will. And then this may repeat. So this is something that you want to avoid. So we want to avoid this. So what we want to do is make long-term, smart, sustainable choices about our lifestyle to do with nutrition and diet. So I think it's about addressing your mindset and trying to change your mindset. And like I mentioned, it's about sustainability. So we can't survive on celery sticks. And I'm just using that as an example. Often the case is removing total food groups as well can be very difficult. And of course, there's some people need to live that certain way as well. They might be lactose intolerant, for example, but that's just mentioning that. But certainly if it's a choice, that can be difficult. And obviously, any sort of changes you make to your lifestyle, regardless of what it might be, it needs to be specific to you and your needs and your likes. And if you do that, and if you make it sustainable and you individualize these changes, then of course the likelihood of you sticking to this new and improved diet, if you will, or change in your eating habits, you'll likely stick to it and achieve the goals long term. I think it's also about mindset. So swapping out those negative thought patterns or the ways that we might think. So like, oh, I can't, I'm not allowed to, I can't have that. That's somebody standing over you and telling you that you can't. To help improve your willingness and for you to be in control, you want to then change that mindset and that inner talk to be like empowering. So I choose not to have that. And when you choose not to have a certain type of food, it makes you feel better about the choice that someone's not telling you, but you are making the decision not to have something, for example. which leads me to say, don't eliminate bad foods. And what I mean by bad foods is the like the highly processed foods, like highly saturated, deep fried, your takeaway foods, high fats, high sugars, and things like that. That's the bad food. The things that you probably shouldn't be having every single meal. Don't eliminate those, and that can be the switch between some people, when I talk to them just in general about dietary tips, I'm like, you don't need to eliminate that chocolate bar that you love so much. It's like, tell me how much you eat of it per day. Arbitrarily, say you had a block a day. Okay, we can't have a block a day, but what you might like to have is a line per day instead. So you can still enjoy those things, but it's just about portion control. And when people realize that they don't have to actually eliminate the bad food and stuff that makes them feel good, then like, oh, actually, this isn't so difficult after all. I can do this because I can still have that. It's just in portion control or moderation. And of course, when you do get a chance to have those foods, enjoy them. Don't feel guilty for having them. So a little bit more on changing your eating mindset. When you have good foods, and the good foods here are your less processed, like milk and cheese or yogurt, for example, and your fresh fruit and veg, for example. Try to, if this is for you and if you find it difficult to eat more of that stuff, try to link it with something that makes you feel happy, to build a positive relationship with it. So it could be enjoying food in the company of other people. That's just an example. Say bribe yourself. Bribery works on my 5-year-old twins all the time. It works on myself. If I eat this, I'll have a small bit of that. So that might help as well. When you're choosing your goals, make them realistic. So I've had clients in the past say or tell me that they've been told to lose 30 kilos. Goodness. And perhaps that is the case, but really, if we're aiming to lose 5 to 10 kilos, that's still not an easy feat, but it certainly sounds more doable than 30. So that's just about smart goal setting. So look, that might be the end goal. That's down there. Keep that in mind, but it's the journey on how we get there. And we get there by taking small incremental steps towards that goal. And that might be, I'm going to lose 2.5 kilos a week, or that would be my goal, for example. And that is very much more sustainable than a lump sum of 30 kilos. And the other thing is, this doesn't happen overnight. That is it, that ad, it doesn't happen overnight, but it will happen. Just be prepared for it to take some time. It doesn't happen. It's not like dyeing your hair and it's a new color within an hour. This is something that you need to chip away at every single day, essentially. And that's why it's about taking small steps that are sustainable. And look, plan for failure. And this isn't being pessimistic or anything, or glass half empty, if you will. It's really, failing is not a bad thing. This is the space in where we learn. But plan for it, because it's going to happen. And we all fall off the wagon. And if we plan for it, then we won't kick ourselves while we're down. We'll go, okay, yep, I knew this was going to happen. And I'm just going to then, I might feel bad about it for a little while. And then I'm just going to get up, get on, reset, and get going. Okay. So let's have a look now, I guess, if you will, near the back half here about diet and arthritis. And I have another question for you. And this is to do with, is there a specific diet for arthritis? So I'm going to throw up a poll and you're going to tell me. Diet and arthritis. I'm just launching that now. Okay, have a go. Yes, no, maybe, not sure. So is there a specific diet for it? Now, arthritis in general, arthritis in general. Great. So yes, no, maybe. That's nearly everybody answered. That's fine. Okay, great. Look, majority of people have said no. You can see that now, hopefully. So the answer is, for most people here tonight, the answer is no. I'll stop sharing that one there. So is there a specific diet for arthritis? Well, no, actually, there isn't. But is there a better? Is there a better diet? Is there one way that you should kind of lean? Then we might say yes. We might say that there might be a better diet. Just looking at the research, it often points towards the Mediterranean diet, if you didn't already know. And it's a great eating pattern for many reasons. It includes a variety of foods. It isn't solely restrictive, which is good. It certainly is sustainable, and importantly, it's a really joyful way of eating. And that's what I was talking about before, when you might need to connect the way that you eat with, for example, things that make you happy or positive things. And that could be eating with other people and enjoying a meal together. So what's the Mediterranean diet, or MD, in a nutshell? Well, it is similar to the good old Australian dietary guideline, if you remember the sort of the triangle that there is. But what it would do is probably include even more vegetables, fruit, the legumes, a lot of olive oil. It actually pulls a lot of its protein in terms of, like meat formed from fish. It includes nuts, obviously whole grains. It does have some red meat, or you can certainly include red meat and other, like poultry, chicken, if you like. You can have your favorite foods. So it's not saying that you can't have them. It's not restrictive, but, in limited quantities. And you might like to have them on occasions, actual, events that are organized, like occasions like this, or just have very small portions throughout the day or week. The Mediterranean diet is part of that, is part of a culture, essentially. And so it's, when possible, you eat in company, and it's supposed to be, a joyful event and shared. And of course, drinking plenty of water and being physically active. So what would a day look like? Breakfast, you might resonate with some of this stuff, or it might be not for you at all. But an example could be toast with avocado and an egg. Lunch could be a big salad, like just think rainbow salad. Bit of protein could be the four bean mix, which is really easy to get. It comes in, the tin or the can. Feta cheese, olives, and I guess to some extent it's good for those people who like to limit animal products. So they might be vegetarian. Obviously not the feta cheese, but the first part of that lunch sounds pretty good. Dinner, some fish or seafood. A decent half plate of different green vegetables and other colors like orange, yellow. And this is where it might help people get over the line with the Mediterranean diet, is that it certainly includes a glass of wine, often red wine, berries. It even includes some dark chocolate. So it's one meal over there. Snacks could be some nuts and some fruit, and of course, water, tea, coffee, and like it says there, some wine in moderation. Okay. Coming off the back of looking at the Mediterranean diet, I think it's good to ask this now. Do certain foods and drinks cause or contribute to inflammation in the body? So this is our final poll question for tonight. So let's see what you guys think. Food inflammation. Do certain foods and or drinks cause or contribute to inflammation in the body? Yes, no, maybe, not sure, some. Have a go at answering that. Now, what do you think? And then we're going to test what you think by talking about it. Or like this one, we've got people answering in each of the answer categories. Majority of people said yes, there are. Some said no, maybe, not sure. A few more have said there are some foods. So I think majority ruling here in that, yes, there are some. Okay, yes, there are some. Okay, cool. Well, I'll just end that poll there. We can have a little look at what we got as a group, what we were all thinking. And I'll get rid of that now. Well, let's discuss that in a little more detail before we wrap up for tonight. So, foods that cause inflammation. So you would be right, there are. And these are the foods. There's a lovely picture of them down the bottom. These are our sometimes foods. These are our foods in moderation. These are our foods, though, that do lead to inflammation, systemic inflammation, and or weight gain. And these are the refined carbohydrates, things that you find in loud sounding bags, plastic bags, aluminium bags. Chocolate, my favorite. It's your junk foods. The chips, the fried foods, the soft drinks, the processed meats like salami and bacon and things like that. Not only do they lead to weight gain and increase of fat tissue, therefore inflammation, they obviously they can lead to other lifestyle diseases like diabetes or heart disease. They contribute to this as well. And all foods, they're all energy, they're all calories, and it's just about where we get most of that from. Okay, so I think the rule here that I like to spread is 80% whole foods, so these next foods, and 20% soul foods. These would be your soul foods. These are the things that make you feel good, but only 20% of the time. So think of your diet of a day or over a week. Have a think about that. Only 20% should really be coming from these kind of foods, but the 80% is coming from the whole foods, and you could potentially think about getting that from a Mediterranean diet, inspired diet. So there are some foods that actually have anti-inflammatory properties, and these include lovely foods like tomatoes and olive oil and green leafy vegetables, nuts, fish, fruits, berries. Anti-inflammatory properties like, for example, omega-3s and antioxidants that we might get from berries. The Mediterranean diet is rich in polyphenols, which prevent and combat inflammation. So, potentially the opposite effect of leptin. Remember that hormone that we can get secreted from fat. And this, and it combats cartilage destruction in that indirect sense. And it results in the lowering of the risk of osteoarthritis-related musculoskeletal inflammation. So some final tips for you tonight that you might like to consider going forward. When we said portion sizes and the management of that. So here's a great visual, the plate that you can see on the slide. Majority is taken up by vegetables, whether that be cooked, salad, steamed, whatever. And then on the other half of the plate is divided into again, and you've got some starch, carbohydrate, and you've got your protein, and there's a small amount of good fats in there as an example of a lunch or dinner. Smaller plates, a lot of the plates these days get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So having your food and filling it on a smaller plate can certainly help with portion sizes. Now, I guess it depends on, if you speak to a dietitian, nutritionist, some people may not, there's different opinions, if you will, but to help increase your metabolism, some may say try smaller meals, but have more of them. And the 2 fruit and the 5 veg is still a thing. So you can try to include that throughout your day. More tips when you're shopping. I've done this before. I'm not sure if anybody else is guilty of this, but I've shopped when I'm hungry, and I have bought things that I wish I didn't. And I actually started eating them when I'm shopping. And it's probably, that self-help thing at Coles or Woolies where you can get like nice things like nuts, open it up and get a scoop. Yeah, I get like the chocolate covered almonds or the honeycomb ones. And if I'm hungry, I'll get a scoop, and I'll have devoured that by the time I've finished shopping. So I try not to go when I'm hungry. And I use a list, and that's also good for budgeting reasons. Try the perimeter shop. So most things, depending on how your shop is obviously set out, a lot of the fresher, more typically healthier things, not always, but sometimes, are on the outside. So you've got fresh fruit and veg on the outside. You've got your bakery and your meat, deli, fish on the outside as well that you can buy fresh. Then you've got frozen and dairy as well. So they're all around the outside. Then you kind of dart down the aisles to get the other things that you needed. I think also planning and preparing healthy, quick, easy meals and snacks when you go out, to take them along with you. And this obviously controls what you eat, but it also can help you save some dollars instead of buying out all the time. And some final tips here is about mindful eating, which we touched on a little bit before as well, but often, and we're all at different stages of life. I'm at the stage of life now where I eat so fast. I have done since I've had children. They're 5, it hasn't changed. I eat really quick. I get indigestion. Sometimes I don't stop when I'm full because I've eaten so quick I don't know. So I think it's about slowing down when we eat in a calmer environment without so much distraction. And that's that sort of mindful eating, What are you eating? How are you feeling the textures? Are you tasting it? What does it smell like? And think about behaviors in certain social contexts as well. So you might go out a lot to different events, and that's where you find you probably overeat or overindulge more than what you'd like to. So consider those and perhaps try going with a fuller stomach, or if it's alcohol, try those little tricks like 1 glass of alcohol, 1 glass of water, those sorts of things. So what we don't want to be doing is restricting our diets, remember. Be physically active every day in as many ways as you can. That'll help with the energy going out, not so much the energy coming in, but the energy going out. You're expending that. And some people may find it helpful to have a friend for accountability purposes, for company, to do it with them, eat healthy and be active. The summary here being that there isn't a diet that will cure arthritis, no, but you certainly can lean towards a diet with more anti-inflammatory properties, higher in omega-3s and antioxidants and things like that, lower in the pro-inflammatory foods. So the MD, the Mediterranean diet, certainly helps in that context. Achieve a healthy weight and try to maintain that. Aim to eat a healthy and balanced diet. Watch your food portions. Stay away from extreme and restrictive diets. And of course, discuss these recommendations or other conditions or patterns of eating with your doctor or dietitian. And of course, keep active. And last but not least, before we sign off for tonight and before we have some time for questions, just a quick plug for our friends at BJC. We're now partnered with BJC. BJC is the Bone and Joint Clinic, and their Connect section houses some wonderful webinars and workshops similar to ours. But for example, on the topic of nutrition, they actually run some really quite specific workshops. For example, I've just got a couple of screen grabs here. So meal hacking, so ways to increase energy and reduce inflammation. We've got workshops on the FODMAPs diet, so learning a little bit more about that. And how to read food labels as well. You might like to brush up on how you read food labels. And these are workshops, so they're a little bit, so there may be a smaller group going to these, so they you can actually talk to the dietitian or nutritionist who is taking the actual class, and so they're a little bit more specific, so you might find them useful. Just know that BJC, you need to sign up and be a member to their Connect part, but it's completely free. So I encourage you to go and check that out. I'm going to put the link in shortly as we just come to the thank you, and I'll put up for any questions as I stop the share and come back to the chat box. If you were wanting, like I said, the link to BJC, I'll just dump it into the chat box there for you, and you can check what they have on, what they've got coming up next. And they do obviously have their sessions recorded like we do now. Okay, so that leaves us to the end there. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any in the chat box. That's totally fine. If anybody has any questions, we've got a couple of minutes before the end. And if we don't have any questions, what you might like to do is type in one or two words, type something that you found interesting or that you learnt today, if you like, into the chat box. So I can. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very informative, fantastic. Yeah, so I get an idea of what you took from today's session. In saying that, you can save that and look out for the survey link that will be coming to you tomorrow, and you can fill it out. Great. Thanks, Sarah. Great, Maria. Yep. Losing just a small amount. Yeah, so 5% can make a difference. That's come out in many studies, 5% thereabouts. But basically, even just losing a small amount can have a positive impact on cartilage health, and actually on pain as well. Okay, no worries. Thanks, Louise. Thanks, Alison. You're welcome to leave. You're welcome. I will stay on for a few more minutes.